Hello, welcome to News Center. I'm Parikshit Luthra. The tech space that witnessed a big wave of layoffs in the last few months of 2022 seems to have no respite. The year has begun on a grim note as global tech firms announced more layoffs in the first 5 days of January than they did in the whole month of December. According to layoffstracker.com, over 28,000 people were handed over pink slips from the 1st to the 5th of January as compared to over 17,000 layoffs in December. Amazon and Salesforce are among the companies that have announced layoffs this month. Shilpa Ranipeta is here with a roundup. Shilpa, how exactly has the tech sector been impacted? Last year, we saw over 150,000 layoffs in the tech industry globally. How has India been impacted?
Well, to start off with, the latest company to hand out pink slips in 2023 has been Amazon, and that's letting go a little over 18,000 jobs. Now, the CEO, Andy Jassy, admitted that 2022's review has been more difficult given the uncertain economy, especially with the company hiring rapidly over the last several years. Now, jobs are being cut across the devices and books, HR and marketplace teams. And of this, sources tell us that roughly 1,000 employees, or 1% of Amazon's India workforce, will be impacted. Now, remember, this comes after Amazon also recently shut down its EdTech, food delivery segments in India, among others. And Amazon isn't the only one in 2023. Salesforce is also letting go about 10% of its workforce. That's more than 7,000 employees, and is also closing some offices amongst a challenging environment, customers rethinking their purchase decisions, and again, overhiring. Now, media company Vimeo also is laying off about 11% of its workforce after it had already cut jobs in July last year. Now, reports also suggest that TikTok's parent ByteDance is also handing out pink slips to employees across departments. Now, these companies now join a list of big techs like Meta, HP, Twitter, Cisco, which all laid off thousands of workers in 2022. And the biggest impact has been in the last 2 months of 2022, where in November-December alone, more than 88,000 people lost their jobs in the tech industry. And globally, and the first 6 days of December, remember, if that is any indication, the pain will continue well into 2023 as well.
All right. Thank you very much, Shilpa, for rounding up the layoffs in the tech industry and how this could continue in 2023. To take this forward, I'm now joined by Roopank Chaudhary, Partner and Chief Commercial Officer for Human Capital Solutions at Aon. Roopank, thank you very much for joining us. Not a very good start for the tech sector globally, 28,000 layoffs, according to reports. Give us a sense of what are the skills that continue to become redundant in organizations. Largely, who are these people? What are the skill sets? What segments of the tech sector were they involved in where these job cuts have been happening?
Yeah, very good evening and thank you for having me here. So I think, Parikshit, the first thing to understand is that what we are seeing happening globally is a function of a bunch of factors. I think if you look at the kind of hiring that has happened, post-pandemic, there was a crazy surge, and a lot of the hiring that has happened now has resulted in bench strength and excess capacity, which is not being utilized. Simply because the whole digital aspect of e-commerce, many of these organizations are in that segment, are struggling to keep up with the digital demand. You can clearly see that global consumer spending has come down in the last few months. We are also seeing a return back to offline models of shopping and sales, and hence e-commerce companies have taken a bit of a hit. At the same time, we're also seeing that a lot of the people who were hired for new product lines or new projects being incubated, especially in companies like Amazon and Meta, they didn't really take off. So a lot of this excess capacity that was built up very, very strongly and very quickly in the last 6 months has struggled to keep up pace with the kind of demand. And it's not surprising that a lot of these layoffs are coming at that particular time. So a lot of these layoffs that we are seeing, globally at least, seem to be for businesses that haven't taken off, for businesses that are focused on the e-commerce space, on digital consumer demand, because a lot of the demand now is going back to the offline models, and hence companies are not really finding space for people to look at this sort of capacity building. At the same time, you have to compare the fact that the kind of numbers that were hired last year in 21 the kind of attrition that we had seen, the kind of increments being given across the world were crazy. It was sort of a bubble which was going to be burst, and it has sort of burst
Right.
now because the demand hasn't kept pace. But very clearly, and I think while your question is largely global in nature, but we are possibly going to see something different in India, because I don't think that it is going to be as widespread or as critical or as chaotic as we see globally as happening in India, because a lot of the local consumption or demand
right.
continues to be very, very strong at this point of time.
You're expecting, okay, you're expecting a minimum impact on India, but as the global uncertainty continues, do you think organizations, some of the big tech firms and even the startups will continue to right size, and this policy of cutting down workforce to achieve profits will continue? And if we were to ask you in percentage terms, what could be the extent of layoffs in the Indian tech industry?
So difficult to give you a number, Parishad, but what I can clearly say is that a lot of these job cuts are happening because of a bunch of reasons. The first and the most important reason is pressure on the margins of companies. That's the biggest reason why companies are cutting costs. Many of these companies also have been well capitalized, at the same time have very strong investors who need to see some sort of an indication of cost control. And a lot of these layoffs are also being done to appease those investors, because obviously the market wants to see some bit of a change or some bit of a mitigation to what is being seen as a very high volatile environment and very strong margin pressure. And at the same time, clearly, because there has been a reduction in digital demand for many of these businesses, that is why layoffs are happening. And as I said, a lot of this was excess capacity that got built over the last 6 months. Having said that, the question to note is that a lot of this talent which will be laid off, or which will, which is at risk, still has a lot of places to go to. We expect talent migration to happen from tech sectors into other sectors which require tech talent. So let's make a differentiation. Many of the stronger sectors which are focused on local consumption and demand, like FMCG, FMCD, life sciences, pharma, financial services, which are more focused on local demand and not necessarily impacted by global recessionary pressures, also have a need for digital talent, tech talent, because the digital journeys are continuing for a lot of these different segments as well. So the demand for this talent will continue, which is why we expect attrition to be very, very high still, lesser than last year, but still very high, and a safe place for this talent to move to, even if the tech talent at this point of time is not able to sustain the kind of high wages that were being paid to these guys. Also keep in mind that the increments that were paid to this sector were very, very high, almost 12, 13%. Now, to keep a 12, 13% hike in your wage bill, especially when there is global uncertainty and recessionary pressures and margin pressure, you have to show a bit of a headcount reduction and rationalization, which is but natural. But a lot of these people will get absorbed by sectors which are looking for tech talent, even if it's outside the tech sector.
Okay, now I would ask you, what skills, according to you, is the tech sector in India and globally looking for? What are the kind of talents, the skills that are in hot demand right now? And those who are being laid off, what is the positive side for them in terms of upskilling and looking for solutions?
So I think the most important thing is that many of these people, as I mentioned, will continue to find a house in places which always need digital or tech talent, right? And a lot of these companies, especially in FMCD, life sciences, pharma, financial services, are still extremely needy for this talent, which is still very, very high in demand. If I try and see the kind of development skills or clear demand for some of the skill sites, I think then clearly is a lot of demand for people in web development, mobile development, cloud development, full stack development, AI, machine learning. Data analytics and reporting is something that has remained extremely strong, extremely high across sectors. Data science, business intelligence, automation architecture, mobile architecture, project management, Scrum Master. Some of these skills remain extremely relevant even now, and some of these skills are being sought after extremely, extremely quickly by some of the other sectors that I have mentioned. See, the fact is that last year we had many sectors
Roopank.
competing for this talent. It was the tech sector, it was the startups, it was the e-commerce, and it was the more traditional sectors. Now what we are seeing is that the startups have struggled to hold on to this talent, as is the tech sector. So now most of these people are making a beeline for the non-tech sectors. The only difference that will now come into play is that they will still be absorbed, but the kind of crazy hikes that we were seeing last year, 35 to 40% hikes, people having 4 to 5 offers at any point of time, that has stopped happening. That will stop happening. And and we expect
All right.
this
Roopank, we're
easing
running out
off
of
to
time.
happen over 2 quarters. Sorry.
Okay. All right. So you're expecting this easing off to happen over the next 2 quarters, and you don't expect those kind of hikes, that is in the range of 35 to 40%. Thanks very much, Roopank, for joining us. Summing up how you see the layoffs in 2022 and what could be the picture for the tech sector and the startup industry in 2023 as well. We're going to take a short break here on News Center, but don't go anywhere. A special conversation coming up with Santosh Iyer, Managing Director and CEO of Mercedes-Benz India.